first I want to introduce you all to Group Chat. This is the second edition of it. It's a bi-monthly mixer and conversation series here in Mid-City that I really started just to have like more in-person community and to connect with new faces and make new friends and have like thoughtful, cool, intentional conversations with people I admire and whose work I respect. So I'm really happy to have Rachel here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also to introduce myself, and then Rachel. My name is Nicole Brown. I'm a culture writer and journalist. I'm a Los Angeles native. I call Mid-City home. And I basically, that's what we're doing here. I love to talk. I love to ask questions and just have interesting conversations. So that's kind of the whole mission behind Group Chat. And then Rachel, I'm going to read your bio off my phone. Rachel is a true child of California, having called Irvine, Orange County, and Los Angeles home. She first began creating content as a senior in high school on her popular fashion and lifestyle blog, That's Chic, in 2007, before migrating her uniquely breezy yet thoughtful aesthetic in the form of travel diaries, vulnerable video essays, and Get Ready With Me vlogs over to her YouTube channel, which boasts 196,000, I'm like, wait, let me get those zeros correct, subscribers in 2013. The video creator and veteran blogger has since created Ward, an online Slack community for deeper connection, partially inspired by the forums, chat rooms, and guilds of the early internet she grew up on, and has worked as a creative consultant, designer, and freelance art director for brands like Glossier, Paige Denim, and AG Jeans. She also teaches a video creator course for the digital trade school I Love Creatives, where she shares insights on the filming and editing processes and has developed a workbook to help guide students through the creative ideation and personal branding journey that is behind successful self-storytelling online. Thank you, Rachel.
Dang, thank you. That's so thoughtful. Thank you.
I want to start just on a personal note for you. We are in the week of your own personal new year. You just had a birthday 2 days ago.
Yes.
Sag season.
Sag season.
And so I kind of wanted to ask you like how you're feeling coming off of that. I know that this has been a significant year for you in terms of like a lot of big choices and changes. So I kind of just wanted to hear like what you're hoping to bring into your new year and what you're taking, I guess, from the last one.
Oh, I know. Isn't that fun to like have a birthday? I just turned 35, so I feel like growing up on the internet and just being a woman online, 35 seemed old on paper, but I have felt that I feel so young. I feel like I keep like getting more and more into myself and dare I say hotter?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Say
like
it.
I
Yes.
just have to tell myself that. I'm like, because you know, everything will just tell you like you're aging, but it's like, but aging's like a privilege.
Absolutely. Yes. And so, okay, obviously, I think we all know, and for those who don't know, you are living in a van right now.
I am.
Which
yes.
is so cool and so brave. I wanted to ask about that decision because I think, like, as a Virgo, like, stability and, like, rootedness feels really crucial to me personally. So I really admire the fact that, like, you kind of have, like, shifted your life in a very dramatic way. So I'm curious, like, how maybe that's opening up your creativity in new ways, like, sort of what this new lifestyle for you as a lifestyle sort of content creator, like, how has shifting your lifestyle maybe shifted your content or your creativity or, like, your inspirations?
Well, how much time do we have? Yeah, I think that there's so much curiosity about, like, my new life. I live in a van, and it really stemmed from this like innate urge to untether my life from just capitalistic survival. And I don't know, I've never had a moment where I was untethered from anything. And like in our modernity, we're tethered to something at all times, our screens, our phones, our friends. Like there's always something that we could do. There's always guilt somewhere. And I just wanted to experience my liveliness and my humanity without the influence of anything. But that's, yeah, just it inspires me so much every day. I've actually started daily vlogging again.
You literally read my mind because I was about to segue into the fact that like you talking about being untethered in this new way has me thinking about like the maybe accountability you feel to do something like a daily vlog. Like obviously like when your audience expects a daily vlog out of you, how does that maybe like challenge you, or is that constraint of knowing people are expecting that helpful in terms of like holding you accountable?
I feel where I'm at because I've had such a long practice of making content online, and again, like just turning 35, I'm accountable to myself, and I've really learned how to be accountable to myself, and no matter what sort of noise or wants exist outside of me, that I could just operate in my own. I mean, certainly there's a lot of logistics that are really stressful as far as like daily vlogging and like being in the van, but like you said, I feel like there's something really important to kind of document this time, because it's such a unique moment in my life, and I think a lot of people have this curiosity of like, well, what is it like to sever everything, and like where does that lead to? So these are just postcards from another side of the way to live, I guess.
Oh, I like that as a postcard. That's beautiful. I guess in terms of your creative process too, to like follow that last question a bit, like what is the relationship between discipline and fluidity for you? Like how much structure does your work and your process require, and how much of it is like intuitive, just sort of like spontaneous creation?
Great question. I know, I'm like every single question, which are such bangers, I'm like, I could just go on and like have a 30-minute like monologue about all of that. Okay. Wait.
I know.
I was
you.
like,
and I'm also long-winded, and I know I need to work on that. I pack a lot in, but no. I guess I was just asking about the relationship between discipline and structure and intuitive fluidity, and just like sort of breathing into the moment of your creativity.
Yes. Okay. So, with my creative process course, I've been thinking about creative process a lot and intuition. I'm a floater. I almost float too much, where like I just operate off of intuition. I need like a little bit of stability and like structure. But you know, with daily vlogging, let's say, like there is this this tremendous like anticipation of like what's gonna happen in the next video, and like to say you're daily vlogging, there's that like accountability. But for me, I'm like, I just want to do things that feel good, and that includes like if I post every other day, if I don't feel like videoing today, the fact that I had the structure and intention to create this month was enough for me to have something going that was structural. And I think because I'm leading with intention, or not intention, I have the intention, but because I'm leading with my intuition, I get to think about like, what's the story I'm trying to tell today? Like, what is the theme that I'm marinating on today? So that they're not just like thoughtless, like follow me along, and like, cause a lot of like follow along vlogs kind of feel a little bit like manic. You're like, I'm just watching someone just like film for filming's sake. There's a lot of content like that, but there's something special about like, well, I'm going to meditate on something, and that takes a little bit of time, and the permission to give myself time, I think, reminds other people that they have the time too, to honor their own creative whims.
Right. Yes, I totally agree. I kind of want to take it back to the early days of the internet, to time leap and time jump a little bit. But because I was thinking about this recently, I feel like the internet's aura, like I feel like if we took an aura photo of the internet, it would change so often. But it does feel like the color of the internet is changing right now to me, and it feels like really different than how it used to be. And so I say that to say, you know, when you first started blogging, I kind of want to hear from your perspective how you would describe existing on the internet. Like, how did that feel for you? And how have you navigated so many eras of the internet while remaining super relevant, super creative, and super present?
That's really sweet. Raise of hands, I'm so curious, like how many people remember and like were really online like 2000, mid-2000s to like 2010s? Okay, so you guys like have a familiarity of like what it was like to have conversations online, like finding little pockets and niches where it felt like your own space. And even if you like started your own blog or something, like For me, like, I mean, obviously there was like social media networks like MySpace and stuff, but like it wasn't about that. It was about having your own, it felt like your own container online. Like you had a live journal or a Zanga or, ooh, yes, I know. That's my Asian girly there. Live journal, Zanga, like, yeah, all the modalities. You had a space that was completely yours, and like people would fall into it, and it was just like so customized to your own liking. And it was a breath of air. Now everything's sort of like flatlined through the user interfaces of these like giant tech modality, like moguls, you know, so it's not the same.
Totally. Yeah, it does feel, I mean, just with the attention economy, it feels like more just transactional to be online, I think. Like whereas in the past, it just felt a lot more, I don't know, honest, genuine, and like people were kind of like, remember that website Stumble Upon?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, that just flew into my brain, but that's how it used to feel. Like you could just literally stumble upon like random things on the internet and kind of like turn over rocks, but now it feels, I don't know. But I do think Substack is refreshing in ways, for instance, because I feel like it almost feels, the way YouTube has channels, I feel that we're kind of seeing this like channelization of people's voices in a different way, where it's like you can have your own little platform and little newsletter, and that kind of feels like your own pocket again. But how did you feel about Instagram? I mean, even Instagram like a couple years ago, like it felt like trends were really dominating the environment as opposed to people having like specific perspectives and their own aesthetic, to me at least. But
I mean, I don't know. Instagram it feels like, I don't know. I feel like I just have to use it almost, you know? It's like I'm addicted to it in a certain way that like somehow still keeps my attention. But yeah, I mean, there's something about like just shit posting on Instagram. Like I have a Finsta just to like have that shit posting mentality where I could just like post and not think about it. But yeah, but like back to like the old internet, you know, it used to be like if you were online back in the day, you were like not cool. Like all your friends would be like, you have online friends, or like you know people online, or you spend your time on a computer. And then now it's like you're uncool if you're not online, it feels.
that's a good point. That's an interesting transition, like socioculturally. That's like, it's true.
Yeah.
I also, something I know that you've talked about before, but I do think is a really sort of powerful sort of anecdote in terms of your love of the internet. It's just like how you say growing up in Irvine, like your parents were like a little more strict, and maybe you developed and I mean, love them, I'm sure. Yeah. No, but I'm just saying that to say, I mean, my parents are here and they wouldn't let me have a Facebook, so. And I did it behind their backs. I'm admitting that on stage years later. No, but
jaw dropped.
But I think that's really actually kind of like powerful, the way you developed a relationship with something as an outlet that felt like a necessity, even though now we sort of underestimate how much of a privilege it is to feel free online. But I just was wondering if you could talk more about that, sort of like growing up in just like that area and sort of how it manifested in terms of like your approach to being online and like developing your voice.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know Irvine, I don't know if you know Irvine, but I actually realized this like in my adult life, but Irvine is a privately owned company, the city of Irvine, which is really, really weird. So it is meant to be like this modern utopia where everything's the same. It's like copy and paste houses. There was like such a sterileness to Irvine and a true safety. And I think that like even when you don't have like struggles or like you have to like fight for something and everything's too convenient, too easy, you kind of find your own rough patches to kind of get your hands dirty and like figure something out. So yeah, I mean, I was just trembling in my room, like I need to do something because I literally can't leave. And I could not believe I can go online and like there's this entire world of like things I could stumble upon.
But honestly, Rachel, that's kind of a form of magic, because hearing you talk about that, it's like you created something out of thin air. Like you kind of created this like online voice and identity out of not having that much to inspire you, it sounds like, in your surroundings. Whereas I think some people can almost be overstimulated and have too much surrounding them, and then they kind of like absorb all that. But maybe it was useful that you kind of were operating from a sort of sterile blank slate you know?
Yes, totally. Like the internet was such a blank slate.
Yeah.
Like my life was a blank slate, and I love that. I love that point of view. This was my version of fantasy.
That's beautiful. Okay, now pivoting to a recent New York Times article I read, which I thought was interesting, and I'm just gonna, this is a top level, but I think it's relevant to our conversation. So an influencer filed a lawsuit, I don't know if anybody saw this, asking if you could copyright a vibe. Like she basically was accusing another person online of copying her vibe. Which I was like, I was like, that's kind of bold. You gotta really be confident to be like, I'm gonna sue you because you remind me of myself so much.
I need to know who this is.
Yeah. No, but I didn't know her, so clearly I'm not online enough, but I don't know. But I thought that was interesting more from like a moral, ethical standpoint than like a financial, legal standpoint, because I think it does, and we can get into, I know we are both spiritual girlies who know all about ego deaths and all that stuff. I was going
to say, that's where my mind went.
Yes, no, but I think that's interesting in terms of like, I guess I'm wondering, as somebody who is influential online, and I'm sure you have a lot of sons and daughters like who are really inspired by your aesthetic and your point of view, have you sort of ever struggled with feeling like, okay, I kind of feel like maybe I'm being a little bit mimicked, but I don't want to lean into that feeling too much because it sounds maybe like centered on ego? Like, has that ever been a struggle for you to feel?
Oh my God. Yes, but also like I'm really flattered because I'm like, dang, like I can see myself like influenced in spaces, and I honestly think it's really cool because something I remind myself to prevent myself from going into a downward spiral. I'm always like, well, what's the upward spiral? Mm-hmm. And the upward spiral for me is like, oh, that just means that vibe is done for me. Like, I'm moving on.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. Right. Like, been there, done that.
Yeah, but you know what? My therapist was also, this is a while ago, but I was talking to him about this, and I was just like, I always want to create things that I haven't seen before, and like I want to like be really unique, and he was like, well, this is great and all, but you're also creating or not creating based on someone else's validation. You're not getting validated in a way, but you're like, the negativity of it is still, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think you get it.
Yes, no, that's real. I hear you. I mean, I'm also curious too, like, but do you have any inspirations, whether they're like online creators or not, but like who do you feel like maybe you're a daughter of, maybe like creatively or aesthetically?
It's so much more influenced than direct, but like I love Miranda July. I love how she approaches her work, and I when I am inspired by another artist or somebody, it's never like a direct representation, like, oh, I want to do what they're doing, but it's like I want to feel what they're feeling, and how do I get to that place on my own?
That's a really nice way of looking at it. That's interesting because you're right. Like, and I know that you're somebody who's very interested in process, and I think you can. It's an interesting idea to sort of look to somebody's process rather than like the final product as an inspiration.
Yes, exactly. I'm like looking at like their, like what they've done and like why did they do that? Like their motives and like how did it feel? Yeah, it's like everything's about feelings and emotions, and it's like tap into like the thing that you want to feel, not the thing that you want to get.
Right. Is there an emotion in particular that moves you to create?
Right now, freedom. I'm all about freedom right now.
Nice. Okay, the Sagittarius speaks. That's very on brand. I mean, okay, so part of the sort of theme of this conversation is like, self-documentation on a certain level and like creating a personal archive and living in a large enough way to have things to sort of like collect and curate and document. And so I just wanted to ask you about confidence, because I'll speak for myself. I feel like I toggle between really like trusting my voice and who I am and feeling like I'm very legible to people and like I'm understood and appreciated. And then sometimes there are those times when it's like, is anybody like seeing me or feeling me, and like sort of wondering about what the external view of maybe yourself or your work is. And so just as somebody who has been, in the public eye for as long as you have, like how have you managed to sort of like push through self-doubt or imposter syndrome at any point, or how do you have the confidence to sort of just like show up as yourself and hope that the right people see and appreciate that?
Well, I took a little bit of a sabbatical from YouTube for a couple years, kind of based on like, who am I right now? And like, imposter syndrome is too strong of a word, but I think in the moments of doubt, it was clearly me having a moment to myself, and I just leaned into it. There was almost like no pushing through it, because then you start forcing something that's like you're forcing a square into like a puzzle that's not clicking. Yeah. So what I had to do was just like lean into it and realize that like my shape is different. I am a different person, and I'm going to allow myself to evolve and give myself the space to see what that feels like and what my story is. And I mean, earlier you just brought up documentation. And I mean, I documented a lot of it. I documented it through photos, through journaling, through videos, but I didn't necessarily take the time to process it and like edit it and share it online just yet. But now suddenly I have about 3 years of like incredibly transformative times in my life that's like in a hard drive somewhere, and I'm really excited to go through it. And now where I'm at with like daily vlogging and like really trying to work up my video practice again is I'm just like kind of ready to get to know myself in a public lens again and kind of do that publicly. And I think I feel so good about where I'm at that I'm able to hold myself down through the perceptions of people's eyes, no matter how they see me, that I can still be myself, feel myself. If anyone has any like qualms or want to like cut me up in any way, I know how to sit down and be like, let's talk about this. Like, you're reading this wrong. Everything's open for interpretation. So just, here's where the gap is missing.
I love that you touched on that too, because sort of the second part of my question was, and I'm thinking about this through the lens of like writing as the art form for me, but it connects to like your work. But like, some people are journalists, some people are novelists, some people are memoirists. And I feel like I see you as sort of like a visual memoirist in terms of like the centerpiece of your work and your voice is centered on you, but that doesn't make it self-centered. You know what I mean? And I think that like, that's why memoirs can be so powerful, because they have this way of, even though they're written from the perspective of the author about their experience, like they still can engage a really broad audience and connect to people. And so, I don't know, I was just thinking about that sort of, that tension between how it's kind of beautiful for people to be able to relate to you, even though your work isn't necessarily about them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But do you have any thoughts about maybe why or how your videos do touch people, even though they're kind of like, they're rooted in your point of view and your specific life?
I feel as though the more we are in touch with our own sorrows, pains, and joy, the more we tap into a universal humanity, and that like everybody experiences the same things, and when we're able to be really vulnerable with ourselves and like really take a time to understand our story and our journey, how we got from start to finish, the middle, the ends, and like all the beautiful moments in between, we start to see our own humanity. And when you see your own humanity, that energy really just translates across the page, across the viewer. And I tell my students, this is kind of like a little bit of a tangent, but I read this thing once that's like happy writer, happy reader. And I just love this idea that like what you create, whatever that is, your energy is contained into this piece, this writing, this video, this painting, whatever it is. And that energy is then translated to somebody else, and that is what art is. And I think that's really powerful.
Definitely. I also wanted to circle back briefly to you talking about how you were recording and documenting so much of that time when you were kind of on a hiatus, and how we didn't see it, but you have it in a hard drive. How do you think sort of methods of preservation like that help us build a relationship to memory, not only of ourselves, but of like an era or of a cultural moment? And what do we lose when we don't archive our own lives or the people around us?
Oh, wow. You got to break up that question.
Okay, yeah, true.
That's a good one.
No, yeah, I mean, well, I really do. I think I want to drill down on what we lose when we don't archive our lives, because I kind of hate when people are like, it's cringe to take photos, or like, live in the moment, be present. Like, I can take a photo and be present, but I think honestly, our camera rolls are so thick because it's important to document. It's important to document life.
For sure.
But I understand the sort of natural reaction people have to that, where it feels like you're not being present if you're like constantly recording or photographing or whatever. But I do think of a camera roll or a hard drive as like a legitimate archive. And so just thinking about maybe when watching that footage back that you recorded but never published, do you feel like you would have remembered all of those emotions and moments if you hadn't recorded it?
I mean, I would have, but like there's something so visceral about being able to relive the moment, and like it's like it is really special. I don't think you lose anything, because like throughout like our time in history of being a human, it's not like we had walking around with personal archives in our pockets. Right. But I like what you were saying about like, can you be present with like holding a camera and like documenting? And like, I think the answer is yes. And the thing that I have a whole section on it on the new creator course I'm working on, but there's this whole theory I have about you have a relationship to your camera. Like you have a relationship to the camera that you hold, how you hold it, who you're talking to, how the lens is being portrayed. And there's so many ways, like I'm vlogging right now, I should have my video camera somewhere. But I definitely know how to hold up a camera and be like, it's fully in this moment and this thing's recording, and like maybe I just like have it here and I'm like mindful enough to like, okay, it's gonna point at the audience now. Okay, then I'm gonna hold it. Why is my camera here? I don't know. Should be doing this. But
appendage.
Yes, it's totally an appendage.
Yeah. So can we get into how you do organize your ideas? Because I'm sure your hard drives are really robust, and I'm sure you have so many of them. Like, how do you organize your ideas, not only your footage on like a literal level, but like, let's get into like your libraries and record keeping, and how you just sort of like divvy up the things that you're interested in and like pursuing.
Well, I haven't been the best at organizing, but I think it's so important. Like if you're documenting a lot and you have a big interest in shooting and stuff like that, like a photographer, for instance, I like to use this example, will take photos all day long, but their body of work isn't what it is until they go through and curate and edit their own photos into like a capsule of like what they're willing to show to the public. And I think it's so important to like have time to go through what you've documented, go through your journals, highlight things, and just think about like what is going on in my life, like that I want to process, that I want to live through, that I want to like perhaps share with somebody else. And yeah, I mean, my hard drives are like in folders. I'm like starting to do that now, like putting all the footage into like different folders. Like this is when I broke up. This is like when I moved out of the house. This is when I did this, and it's like all into those separate folders.
Yeah. That's true. You saying that in terms of organization and like the photographer example makes me think about how like organization really is curatorial work. Like you're kind of curating what the actual thing is from like all of the material. Mm-hmm. That's cool. I'm kind of jumping around, sorry, but I feel like you're really unafraid to pivot, and I think that that's something that's admirable. I mean, we see it with like the lifestyle you're living now, but you've like sort of hopped across different social media platforms. I'm just thinking in terms of like, what hosting site was your original blog on?
Blogspot.
Blogspot?
Yeah.
Okay, an OG, yes. Blogspot, and then YouTube, and Instagram, and Slack, and all these things. Like, I guess I'm curious, like how, and it seems like you've always been a little clairvoyant, like a little ahead of the curve. How do you trust, I guess, that your stuff will sort of translate across different platforms, or like the world you've created, it's existed in a lot of different formats in a way?
I haven't been like as savvy of like tech evolved and like apps as much as I used to, but I think I just think about like if I have something that I want to do or like how I want to engage with people or like interact with people and what I want to share. I just think about like what platform would that go on. But I don't know. Like I'm really excited about like the YouTube resurgence feel right now.
Yes, no, and you are a part of bringing it back. You're a leader in that charge, I think. Like
I don't think
yeah. So when I was thinking about you coming to group chat, which I did conceive of like very much as what it is. So thank you guys again, because it's so beautiful to see something manifest that has been in your brain for such a long time. And like, I really did want to create an IRL community that felt like mature but still fun. And but I'm thinking about how you're so good at developing like digital communities that exist, which in a way to me is like, I mean, it's hard to get people to show up anywhere in person, but I think it's also hard to engage people online where they want to come back to the same room, even though they don't have to, and even though they don't know the people. So I don't know, how would you say, like, do you feel like it was sort of maybe an intuitive process, like building like a community like Ward, for instance, which existed on Slack, which is really cool to use a workplace app to create a chat community in like a little neighborhood. But, you know, were you being super intentional about the way you were kind of building that, or do you feel like you just naturally are adept at like building community online? Because I think that's a different strength even than building it in person. There's like, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all intuitive, and partially why I feel like I can, like every time I feel like I'm really online or like I'm ready, I'm like want to be in the community, it's because I feel really alone. It's like when I was like living at my parents' house and like couldn't go out, when I was like in COVID and I was just living by myself, and now I'm living by myself in my van. So like there's something about like when I'm really by myself and I'm not like around people that I'm like craving people and craving online. I'm just craving people. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm about to get into some weird Evan question territory.
Let's go.
Okay, are there any colors or textures, feelings, tastes, times of day that really move you to create? I guess I asked that a little bit before, but I kind of want to, like, what's on your mind's mood board when you're like, okay, this is like, I don't know, like, what's your Rachel starter pack in your head? I don't know.
All right, I'm just going to list words off in my head, but
I love it.
Love sunsets. I love smells, scents, incense. I love furry dogs. I love, okay. Actually, here's a good thing. Okay, my old apartment, in all my apartments, I feel like I've really learned how to like be and exist in what I call spiritual housekeeping. And I carry this through. So my starter pack for that is ambient lighting, first and foremost, natural lighting, good natural light. Oh my God, dusk and dawn, beautiful times of day. I love staring at the moon. I love staring at the ocean. I love just like sitting around and just letting the air take me. I love fresh air. I hate being around asphalt. Love being barefoot. Love being in nature. I love bringing like home goods to nature. So it's like bringing like a really good matcha or like a really good well-made soup, and like you're sitting in the middle of nowhere like eating that. That's, I think, Rach 3.0 starter pack.
Wow. Okay, you understood the assignment. That's exactly the type of answer I was hoping for. I'm thinking too, I mean, it's actually funny that you list those things, because once I started to get to know you in person, like, and moved from knowing you at a distance online through my eMac computer, looking at blogs, I was almost, I won't say I was surprised, but I was refreshed by how sort of like present and genuine and somatic and embodied you felt, because I think like some people feel kind of like avatars when you know them more digitally, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I think it's so cool that like you, and maybe that's, I think a lot of people probably resonate with the authenticity of your work, because like in your videos it feels, I almost feel like I could like reach through the screen and like touch what you're showing us. Wow. You know? But you don't get that feeling with everybody, and so I don't know how you capture it. Maybe it's just true to you, but it's an interesting, I think it's like a cool like tension you have with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that.
Yes. you know, you're a teacher now on I Love Creatives and are building a workbook. Can you tell us about how you approached building a workbook for students who want to learn how to do what you do, essentially? And did it teach you anything about your own process, having to make it legible to people that you were teaching it to?
Yes. Okay. So just to rewind to give context, 2021, or during 2020, one of my pandemic projects was with my friend Puno from I Love Creatives, and she was like, how do you make your videos? And I was like, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh my God, we should package that because that's really interesting. So she just picked my brain and we made this course. But it wasn't until I was like teaching it with people and like helping people through like what they're trying to share, how to make a video, and like watching this transpire that I was really understanding creative process differently. So I found that the biggest struggle for a lot of students who wanted to create videos was that they're so concerned with the outcome of how something should look, and like creating something based on what they saw. Like they like made the mood board. They're like, I want to make the mood board, but I'm like, but that has no feelings or emotions. Tap into what you're feeling. So when I redid the workbook to kind of align a lot of like student hiccups to how I teach it now, it is so much more somatic. And I really learned that creative process is such a spiritual, tapped in process. Like to be creative, to have that creative wherewithal, is to be able to like hear yourself so clearly, to feel yourself so divinely that you're able to like create things out of that. And it doesn't matter what that looks like. Like you literally could write a poem and read it out loud in a weird voice, and like that's a really interesting video.
Right. How, in terms of your creative process, like more nuts and bolts, like how do you sort of choose which moments to capture and which ones to maybe just exist in? And like how much footage do you have in terms of, and how much you kind of like edit it down, and what do you omit and keep? Like how do you make those decisions?
Well, okay, so for daily vlogging right now, I average about 100 clips a day, if that gives context on like logistics.
How much time would that be? Like total time?
It's probably like 2 to 3 hours of footage.
Oh, wow.
That I scrub through.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I mean, a lot of it's kind of like dead air, me just being like,
Right.
So I have to like cut around that. But honestly, when I'm documenting and I'm like have an interest, like I wish I had my camcorder with me right now. Like it is an appendage.
It would have been
like,
meta to like daily vlog
I
this.
know, I know. We'll figure it out anyway.
Yeah.
So you guys can film for me, right? And you'll send me the footage, right? Doing horizontal 4K. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
24 frames. Okay. Anyways, anytime I feel a moment, like a real emotion happening, like, oh my God, that was so pretty. Oh my God, this is so cool. This is delicious. Like the innate feeling that I have is when I hit record.
Wow.
I'm never like setting up a thing to like record it or make it look pretty, because that like takes away the energy of like the moment.
I so admire that, and I'm just like blown away by it, because I've never had like a visual instinct in quite that way. My instinct would be to like write 2 sentences down of how that moment made me feel.
I mean, yeah, that's documentation though. That's
right.
exactly it.
Right, but it's just cool how people have like different mediums in that way, you know? And what's your favorite thing to collect? Or one of your favorite things?
I mean, like incense comes to mind, but that's not a sexy answer.
And I like that though. I mean, that's a beautiful
I
thing
like to collect people.
Yes, that's really real.
I like to collect interesting people.
Mm-hmm. And not many people will admit that, but I think that's a worthy thing to collect. You've also spoken about radical vulnerability in your work and that translating to people. Do you ever feel overexposed, or do you just feel like whatever you've chosen to share is meant to be out there and you're okay with it?
Yeah, exactly that.
Nice. Okay, any favorite van stops you've had thus far?
Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta. It is the root chakra of the earth,
Wow.
and it is just an absolute pristine nature. It's incredible. I can't wait to go back.
Wow.
Very cold right now, though. I got caught in snow, and I was like, oh, I can't be here right now, so I had to drive down.
Totally. Like, how, obviously, you're a human being in your own self offline and sort of separate of what people may see. Have you ever felt like there's been times when maybe your personal life and your sort of internet identity or persona were out of lockstep? Like maybe you were evolving at a different pace in real life than was being demonstrated or being perceived online?
Oh my God, yeah, like that entire time I took offline, I feel like I was like, I need to get to know myself privately.
Yeah. Cool. Do you ever see like different sort of taking your video skill set off of YouTube and like creating different projects in the film video world?
Definitely. Yeah, I don't know what that is yet, but I mean, in my hiatus off, my partner, my sweetie, he brought me on to work with him for a year. So I was doing a lot of commercial work. So I got to learn like the skills of the trade of like how to shoot with film and like how to direct a crew on set. So that was a great thing, but I don't know. There's something that I just
a film with your eye.
No pressure. Okay. Yeah, that's something really interesting. I mean, but you know, I love the verite of it all. I love verite content. I love something that feels so viscerally real that you can like reach out. I love what you said, that you can reach out and like watch it. Like early verite movies are so. I'm so inspired by that.
Nice. Yeah. Did we have one last one? Yes.
You've been sharing more about like your journey into spirituality and meditation and those kind of things, and I'm curious how you found them to affect your creativity.
Oh, that's such a good question. How has my journey into spirituality affected my creativity? For me right now, I think that, oh God, how off the wall can I get? How woo-woo-y can I get?
Super woo-woo.
Okay.
You're in good company. We're here. We're in the room. The spirits are in the room.
Okay. Love. Okay. I think creative act is a conversation with God. And I think that everyone has a different definition of God. And I grew up Buddhist, so I didn't even know what God was. But in my new path towards spirituality, I'm like, God is everywhere. It's within all of us. It is just divine, untouched energy that is here to take care of us. And when we listen to that, we can see and sense what is going on in our own lives and the messages that we want to share with the world. And suddenly I felt like compelled to be like, oh, there is a new way to exist. There's a new way to live, and I'm going to challenge that by like changing my life. And like, what message does that give me? Everything feels like a trial and error. Everything feels like, I'm just like, everything feels like trial and error. And because I trust myself now, I trust myself to go through really difficult times in order to go through the other side and be like, is there a message here that I can share for anyone outside of myself? And that's not necessarily my main motive, but I do feel like being in touch with spirituality, you realize that when you are in touch with God, there is a service that you have to be of service in some way. How do you spread light?
That's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for coming and being here and sharing space with us. It's really nice.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.